Well, welcome to another episode of Business Builders. Welcome to everyone who's on, and if you're watching the replay on YouTube, welcome as well. We're gonna get that music turned off. Hit apps. Boom, there we go. All right, cool. Well, question: have you ever worked with consultants, quote unquote, or business coaches, and all you got was virtual Zoom calls, and you felt like, you know what, I really need someone to come into my business and get in here, get their hands dirty, see what's going on, because we can't just do this virtually. Well, if you have and you thought that, then this is going to be a good episode of the Business Builder Show for you, because we've got Bob from Onyx. He'll introduce himself here in a second. And Bob's one of our clients, and we're actually on site in location here in Bonita Springs, Florida, and we're getting down dirty, getting into Bob's business and seeing what needs to be fixed and how we can fortify, build the foundation, and create that foresight so we can get to the fortune phase. If you know about the 4 phases of the business cycle, then you know what I'm referring to there. So, Bob, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Cool. So, introduce yourself to folks who, some of you may know who Bob is. He's been on the calls before, but now he's our featured guest on the show.
So I'm Bob. I'm the owner of Onyx Asphalt USA. We're located in Bonita Springs, Florida. We work locally and as well as nationally.
Yeah. So Bob, we actually met. What year? What was it? 20. It was a while ago. The 2022.
I would say, yeah.
Yeah. So I was with a different firm, and Bob came to an event where I was presenting, teaching on marketing and sales, and we connected afterwards. And you had said that you felt like you got some value from that.
Yeah.
And then we didn't really talk for a couple of years, and then it was earlier this year, maybe a couple of months ago, you reached out. Was it via LinkedIn?
LinkedIn, yeah. I saw some videos and reached out, messaged you on LinkedIn.
Yeah, and then we got to talking, and Bob explained what was going on with his business, and I'll let him share that. And now here we are, less than a couple months later, getting into the business and doing work. So, kind of share what was going on for you before you reached out, and then what made you decide to reach out.
I have always wanted to scale the business. I had a dream that the business could always be much larger. I tried to do it by myself and wasn't able to achieve it. I think there was a lot of opportunity. And when I saw AJ's video, I was looking to have somebody help me scale it and reached out. And here we are. And some things needed to be fixed in the business, which I didn't know how to fix. So we got to talking about that. And like you said, instead of just trying to do it via Zoom or some workbooks or something like that, you and the team came on down, and here we are working on it.
So I'm curious, what video was it that you saw?
You have so many. That's a tough question. It had to be one about, do you want to scale your business and this and that, and of course I knew you from the other firm, and I saw, a different name, and so
yeah,
I reached out and thought, hey, what are you doing? I think part of the video, if I remember right, you talked about that you were going to work in the business.
Right.
And that's what attracted me versus, in the past, I have signed up with different people and it was a coaching thing, a Zoom thing. And here you go and try to figure it out. And,
yeah,
so what attracted me was that your model is to help work in the business and get it going. So that's what I was looking for. And that's truly what I needed.
Yeah, and that's what most business owners need. I mean, you guys who are watching this now, whether you're live or you're watching the replay on YouTube or wherever, you know that building it, as you built your business, it's not a passive thing. It's not just, ideas of what to do or here's some instructions. There's a lot that goes into it, and the nuances of the day-to-day personalities that need to be navigated, and it's creating custom strategy. I mean, you've worked with other people who presented a system, or whether it's an agency or a business coach. But what's your thought on that? I mean, what have you seen the contrast? Because we've actually spent the last 3 days with you, three full days in the office, talking to you and everyone on your team. Actually, probably spent more time talking with your team than we did even with you to really learn the business. What is the contrast that you see from past experiences and what you experienced over the last 3 days in terms of the value that you received and the clarity, confidence, and where that is now?
It's night and day. I mean, you have you guys physically there helping, explaining, digging into it. You really know what is going on and you learn the business. In the past, I think you're just categorized as a business, and without getting to know actually what the business is why I think kind of I failed. They're just giving you basic business information and classifying everybody's business as it's a business, where
Yeah.
you guys came here and learned and asked the questions, like you said, interviewed the team, got to know my business, so now you could move it going forward. So uh personally, I've never experienced anything that you guys do now in the past. So it's truly a blessing.
Well, and then we're glad, honored to be here. That you put your trust in us, and it's a big commitment because it's one thing to make an investment the first time, and then it's par for the course. It's kind of a rite of passage as a business owner. You're going to make bad investments, coaching programs, courses, consulting firms, and most business owners stop. They just get to the point where they say, no, we're not going to do it. And you even had people on your team who went through the previous experience with you, and they were burned. They experienced what you experienced, not seeing the value. Why is it that you were still committed to doing something? You were, because you weren't necessarily looking for Altru Partners, even though we knew each other from the past because you didn't know it existed. You were looking for, I got to invest in something and get some help to grow my business. And a lot of business owners, when they get burned, they don't do that. They just say, I'm just going to figure this out myself. And I've literally heard that. So why were you still committed to investing in the help of other people to help you grow and scale the business?
Um, because I truly believe that the business can be something.
Mhm.
And I truly believe myself. I know that where you said other business owners said, I'm just going to do it myself. Well, if you thought you could do it yourself, you already would have.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I know I'm not going to do it myself. So I just kept looking and looking and looking, and there's got to be an answer to the question somewhere. And here you are. So it was just, I didn't want to give up. I wasn't going to quit. I wasn't going to give up. I did realize there's somebody out there that could teach me. I mean, there's a big world out there, but there's a lot of people that teach it the way I've done in the past. There's nobody that teaches it the way you are doing now. And
Mhm.
that's what really attracted me, was that. And of course, I knew you, but if it was just the same old thing, I probably would say, "Oh, congratulations on the
Yeah.
new thing," and
Yeah.
and that. But what you guys were willing to do, and what I've seen for the last 3 days, is just, I don't I don't think anybody else out there is doing that. And you
Yeah.
guys just really, and you talked about trust and comfort after you guys being there. I mean, I'm so comfortable and trustworthy with it. I would throw you guys the keys to the company right
Mhm.
now. And so you've made that feel of comfort, and the team, like you mentioned. Some people, when I said what I was going to do, they were skeptical
Yeah.
because of the past. Oh, we're
Sure.
going to do this again. And so I had to convince them. And you guys, as you've seen, as we finished up today, you convinced, especially one that was
Yeah.
not was not a
Yeah.
yes. And now she, on the way out after you guys left and we all left, she was like, that I'm glad you did it. And you know, feels very confident about moving forward. And now
Mhm.
there's a vision, and there's a path, and there's a light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah. That means a lot for us to hear because we're all business owners, and I want to touch on that, why you chose to work with us as opposed to all the others are out there. There are bigger names, there are bigger companies, but you chose to work with us, which we don't take lightly. But what was it that, um, everyone has to have a gatekeeper in your company, whether that's your spouse or significant other. We work with a lot of clients that have significant others running the business together, like you guys do, and it's usually that person who's closest to you, has been with you the longest. That is the bulldog. They're at the gate, and they're protecting you. What was it that how did that conversation go? What was it that you said to really cast the vision? And honestly, you had to persuade your team to go on this journey with you again and take the risk.
The biggest game changer was that I told them that you guys were going to come in and work on the business with us and
Mhm.
not just, like I said, teach it. And
Right.
that was, that is really the game changer, is that you
Mm.
guys are literally gonna come in and help us do it, show us how to do it, put it into place, and then, you know, help with the hiring and help put the team together and just do everything we need to do and are willing to grow. As we grow, you grow, and it's a team effort. It's not just Onyx and Altru.
Yeah.
It's a team effort here, which I really like. And so the biggest thing was that you guys were gonna come and help. It wasn't just my team, as you've seen, is a little overwhelmed, a little
Mhm.
overworked, and now on top of them, we go, well, here's some homework, because we're gonna,
Right.
you know, that's what we did in the past.
Yeah.
You know, here's your homework for the week, here's your videos to watch, here's your, and who's doing that after 10, 12 hours?
Yeah.
Maybe they'll do it for a little bit, and after a while, they'll drop off, and
Yeah.
that's kind of what happened.
And that's the perspective. I mean, one of the things that's different with Altru, and this is for any consultant on our team, they have to either have been a prior business owner or current business owner transitioning out, or have a high level of experience in corporate leadership, meaning they have been a director, VP. They have to have that experience because otherwise, like you said, there's nuances to it. There's your team is overwhelmed. There's the frustration, and when you haven't been a business owner, and this is our philosophy and what we found to be true, when you haven't been a business owner, you don't know what that pressure feels like. A big word for us and how we operate Altru, part of our Altru approach, as we call it, is compassion. And the Latin of compassion is made up of two phrases, which is to suffer with. And you have to know, and this is true for all of you who are watching, and Bob knows this because he's been in this industry for 30 years, paving, asphalt paving. He started from the ground up. If you don't know what it is to build something from the ground up, it's going to be very difficult to help another business owner build their business
Right.
because you can't feel that you can't have the empathy that you should have. So question, why us? There are a lot of options out there. And you mentioned we knew each other from 2 3 years ago, about 3 years now, but we weren't beer drinking buddies.
No,
We
no.
hadn't gone out. We had one dinner together
Right.
after you watched me present for a couple hours. So it was a very short amount of time, maybe a couple hours. Why did you choose Altru? Because it's a gamble.
Yeah,
You
oh, no, for sure. It's, I just felt comfortable. I'll be honest, when we did meet for a little bit, we talked, and I never, I always had a good feeling. I never had a uncomfortable feeling, where some people in the past have had an uncomfortable feeling. And we talked a little bit, and pretty much all the questions and things that I asked, you answered. And I kind of quizzed you a little bit about the past, right?
Mhm.
And what were we gonna go through?
Right.
And just, I guess, at the end of the day, I felt comfortable and thought, I'm gonna move forward with this.
Yeah.
And, and that was pretty much it. I mean, you made it feel comfortable, and, um, well, here we are.
Yeah.
You know,
And
I had to pick somebody,
yeah.
and so, and I did, you know, we talked about it, I reached out to some other names. Um, and this was what I thought was the good fit. And so,
Well, like I said, we're honored to work with you. In the last 3 days, we've talked about a lot. We've gone through infrastructure, team, communication, systems. I mean, we really tore the business apart and got into every aspect of it, even to the point where Heather and Tim, our COO and our CFO, are sitting on the floor going through receipts and really doing the work and then in the investigation and research to rebuild your financial structure. What's been the biggest moment of clarity? And then I'll follow up with a second question about, your level of confidence now. So let's actually break that up. Prior to working with us, where was the lack of clarity for you?
well, for me, I was always, I was a blue collar guy
Mhm.
that, you know, worked for somebody else. And I always had the drive that I wanted to start a company. So I grew this company to the level I could get it to,
Mhm.
being a hard worker. And
Yeah.
at some point you peak out, and I couldn't get through a breakthrough point
Mhm.
because I didn't know the knowledge.
Right.
So that's where I didn't even know what breakthrough points and all that were, but
Mhm.
through the past. So um, I realized at some point that I needed some guidance
Yeah.
and knowledge. And so I didn't have the clarity, I guess,
Mhm.
to be honest with you, of how am I going to do this? I knew I needed to do something, but I didn't have the clarity of that.
Sure.
So by talking with yous and you teaching me, you brought the clarity to me, and
Yeah.
now we know what we have to do. And what's very convincing to me is that you literally went through my company, like you said, for
Mhm.
3 days. So how do we move forward? You know, I don't have any doubt in my mind. How do we move forward?
Mhm.
You're not just giving me 30 minutes on a Zoom meeting and saying, well, this is what you
Right.
got to do. And so,
And we talked through a plan. I mean, we ended the day with a layout of what the move forward strategy is and how we're going to do that. Um, and I want to get, because we kind of skipped over, so I want to go back to it. When you said you had a lack of clarity, and we talked about this 2 days ago, where you know what you need to do, just not how to do it. You know you need to grow the revenue, improve communication, bring more talent onto the team, and expand. But you don't know how to do that, and that's the case for a lot of business owners because you're not new to this. We mentioned a couple of times it's been 30 plus years. So kind of take us back. How did you get in this industry? Want folks who are watching to know your story because you just said something that caught my attention. If you guys haven't noticed, Bob's got that Chicago accent. You said you're working with yous. That's a Chicago thing, and I love that about you. It's entertaining to work with you. But take us back. How did you get into the industry, and then how did you get here to where now Onyx is a multi-million-dollar business, and we're about to blow it up and go to more.
um, out of high school, I did various labor jobs. After that, I went to work for an airline. Um, and after 9/11, um, we took some pay cuts and all that. I
Sure.
had to go find another job. So I was helping out somebody who was in this industry,
Hmm.
and I learned a little bit from it. And then I realized that I could do this. And so I went for it
Yeah.
and opened it up. I didn't know a lot. And
What was the motivation to do that? Because a lot of folks, I mean, we become entrepreneurs for different reasons. I found that I just I had a bigger vision than any place I ever worked at. It was always a cap, and honestly, a lot of the people I worked for were some were great, but a lot where I realized I could do your job better, and I wanted to have the control to build something. What was it for you? Because you worked for someone, you learned the asphalt industry, got your years in and your reps to learn the business. But what was it that made you decide I'm going to do this myself?
I always wanted to own a business. I just didn't know what the business was. And
Okay.
like I said, I worked for the airlines before this. I wasn't going to open an airline. I
Yeah.
knew that part. And I was pretty much maxed out at that job. You couldn't make any more money. I was at what I
Hmm.
was at. So I learned this business, and I thought I could do this, and I could I always wanted to open a business, so, I went for it. That was my drive of, I just wanted to better myself. As we talked, I'm always somebody about, you have one life.
Yeah.
And so if I didn't go for it, I'd have had regrets.
Hmm.
So, I did go for it. And at one point, I was doing both jobs.
Sure.
And I was offered a buyout, so I took it and then went all in. And it just the drive of owning a business is, I just always wanted to own one. I wanted to work for myself.
Yeah.
I thought I could do a little better job. I could run it a little better. I could deliver a better product.
Hmm.
And so I was able to do all that. What I didn't realize is I kept myself out, that only gets so high. And
Right.
then you learn about, like you said, processes and this and that.
Yeah.
I had no clue of that part of
Right.
business. But I was very happy owning a business. I was making more money than I was before. I was living check to check before I started my business. And
Right.
now I had some business, and part of it was I grew it to a certain level. And like you said, I've been in business for a
Mhm.
long time, and people are like, oh, why didn't you grow it even bigger? Well, one, I didn't know
Sure.
how. And two, it is very true. I went a check to check guy to owning a business that life was pretty good. And I strangled it like some
Yeah.
people do. You
Yeah.
get to a nice life where you're like, life's good, and you try to move it up a little farther and you get uncomfortable and you go, oh, I'm not going
Right.
to lose this. So you strangle it. And that was a mistake
That's
that I
actually
did
a
for a very long time.
Yeah, it's actually a good talking point because there is that point where I mean you had reached a point where you were doing multiple million and like you said things were good. When you say you choked it, explain what that means because all of us as business owners we run into this point where we want to push, we can see maybe the next horizon or the next summit to reach, but then that fear kicks in. And what was that for you? What talk us through that
Well,
experience?
very uncomfortable.
Hmm.
Um, because you like the idea of the money. Of
Right.
course, you're thinking, oh, if we could do this, we could do
Yeah.
that. But then you start to do it, and I didn't know the parts or the moves to make it to that. What do you need? What systems do you need to put
Hmm.
in place? And so I would start doing it and be okay, but then it would start coming back and you'd almost start losing.
Right.
And that's where I'm like, well,
Hmm.
I'm going to go back to my comfort zone.
Right.
And, more and more videos you watch and you listen to is that people say if you're not uncomfortable, you're not growing.
Right.
Uh,
And then, there are a lot of YouTube videos and people talk about business, but then they say things like that. Like they're great motivational sayings. If you're not uncomfortable, you're not doing anything big enough, but they don't talk about how and what it takes. And some do. And I'm sure you've watched a lot of videos on that. Um, but what I want to point out within that is you realized, and we talked about this, you had reached the cap of what Bob knew, what Bob could
right,
do.
absolutely.
And most business owners stay stuck. I mean, I forget the exact percentage, but there are very few businesses that ever hit 10 million. And you're right in the middle, between a million and 10 million. And it's because they get to a cap of what they know. And then they decide, like we talked about earlier, well, I'll just figure it out. And like you said, I think you said it really well. If you could have figured it out, you would have already figured it out. So I want to acknowledge the humility that it takes from a business owner who's built something that's successful, made a lot of money, made millions to the point where you can, you have we talked about tonight, not a hobby, but really it's a business that you do on the side, flipping homes. And,
Right.
you pull a couple million out of a home because Florida has been a great market. You decided to recognize, here's what I know. Now I need to pull people in. And that is the difference of a business leader versus a business owner. So you're really that business leader now. Was there a process for you to get there, to get to that place where you could acknowledge, I need to go get other help, or did you wrestle with it, or was it pretty easy for you to make that transition?
Um, for one, I wanted it. Like we've talked about, I
Yeah.
wanted it. I want to grow this company. What really started making it reality is that if I don't grow it,
Hmm.
somebody's gonna somebody's gonna grow past me, and
Yeah.
there's that possibility that you're gonna start losing customers
Right.
because you're not growing, you're dying, right?
Yeah. And someone else is willing to get the help that you might not be willing to get.
Right. So you have to keep growing. For a
Yeah.
long time I was very comfortable where I was at. The world's
Hmm.
changing really fast now. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, we talked about before I had a game plan. One place was 5, 10 year game plan.
Right.
That doesn't even make sense anymore. The game changes so fast.
Yeah. We just had the election, and yeah, and I think it was smart. You had a game plan regardless of who got elected. You were thinking through what you were going to do, but either way it changes and you have to adapt.
To adapt, and then just my biggest thing here is because things have changed in Florida too. There's like I said, there's some competition.
Hmm.
There's been good competition, and it's like anything. If you're not competing, you're going to lose.
Yeah.
So it was time to do it, and um,
But it was also,
everything fell in place.
yeah. And there's also a deeper reason for you. And you talked about, this is one of the reasons that made me want to work with you. And after we talked on the phone, I went and told the team, I think Bob's going to be a great client because for us, our mission is to help businesses scale on purpose so they can give generously. So it's more about the impact and the income. And if you make a great impact with your customers, your clients, they will pay you. And where we'll get around, you get more customers and clients. But what you shared specifically with me was what you want to do with the profit in scaling the business, why it was important for you. And so share the vision of where you want to grow Onyx in the next 5 years that you shared with me, and then why, what you want to be able to do with that wealth. Because that's really
Yeah.
the driving factor.
And that was one of the things we talked about, and why I wanted the money was there's a lot of people out there that could use help.
Mhm.
From children,
Yeah.
adults, elderly.
And speaking of children, in your office, we saw, and I got choked up because I was a youth pastor for a long time. My wife and I have always served people in different capacities from traveling on missions. Walked in your office, and there's a dozen on your wall. There's a dozen pieces of red construction paper that you get from school, and every one of them had a turkey drawn on it. You know, kids trace their hand, draw the beak, draw the feathers, and all that. And every one of them I thought was really cute. And the heartwarming part, they all said, "Thank you, Mr. Bob."
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, tell about that. What was that you did?
So a friend of mine's mother works at a school in Fort Myers, and some of the families are not as fortunate as others.
Hmm.
And we got to just talking about, Thanksgiving was coming up, and it came up talking about, certain lifestyles that people are living.
Yeah.
And I just thought everybody should enjoy Thanksgiving dinner. So I asked her if she didn't mind. I didn't want to overstep my boundaries or anything
Sure.
like that. And I asked her, would you be able to find out how many people do you think aren't going to enjoy Thanksgiving dinner? So she gave us a head count, and here in Southwest Florida or Florida, some people may not know, but Publix is our grocery store. So I went to the local Publix and told them my story, and I said I'd like to uh, provide these families with a Thanksgiving
Yeah.
dinner.
That's
So
awesome.
Publix did a wonderful job. So there's a little shout out to Publix, I guess.
Yeah. We'll invoice them later.
Yeah. But they did a wonderful job. I made sure that it was all ready for the families, and delivered it to all the families, and everybody was very grateful. And afterwards, the mom that I know from the school, she said, "Oh, can I meet you?" And I said, "Sure," and she said, I want to just give you something. I didn't know what it was. And
Yeah.
so it was all the kids made, they're young, so right, the construction
Right.
paper and
Yeah.
probably art class of some kind.
Yeah.
And she gave me that, and I will tell you, I tried to compose myself, but
I was gonna say you
I
probably
couldn't do it.
bawled like a baby. Yeah.
I completely freaking lost it.
Yeah.
So, but I will tell you the feeling, even though you're losing it, of helping others,
Mhm.
and the impact, and just that they didn't have to give me a card,
Yeah.
but that card's meant so much to me that's why they're
Yeah.
on my wall.
And that's
So
that's the beautiful thing about business, that you can do those things. And I'll ask you this question, and I already know the answer, but for everyone out there, when you made your first million, like you got $1 million in the bank, you're doing well, compared to that moment of the kids giving you the card and knowing how you impacted their life, did you bawl and cry your eyes out when you made your first million?
No, I think I went up for dinner and celebrated.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that was very nice. Believe me,
Sure.
I'll even go back even farther. I remember the first time I didn't make $1 million. The company did $1 million,
Mm.
and I thought, once again, being a blue collar guy punching a clock,
Yeah.
man, I won the lottery.
Yeah.
I mean, so, but the feeling of giving back, I don't think there's any comparison to that. I
Yeah.
don't. So if you said, if your company could make $50 million, or we could help 50 million people, or, one of my things too, is we talked about, is the animals and the sea life and the whole, really, the
Mhm.
planet is really my drive, why I'd like to make a lot of money. The helping the people, or helping
Right.
life, or something, for me, the check doesn't give you that same
Yeah.
happiness as.
I don't love that, because I mean,
I'm trying to be composed now. Are you gonna
Yeah.
get me to track a little bit.
I won't do that to you. I won't do that to you. But I appreciate that because it's, I mean, we have one conversation we had. I told you that part of the mission of Altru in 2025 is we want to give away $1 million to charitable causes. And there's a few, Kirk is the adopted dad of three, so he's really passionate about kids in foster care and adoptions. And then my Heather and I are really passionate about fighting sex trafficking. And, we all have causes that we're really passionate about that we want to give back to. So when I told you that, uh, again, you went back to the generosity. You said, well, I want to be able to do that just for my company. So, we have a target now of, can we give away $2 million in 2025? And that's just you. That doesn't include all of our other clients. And that's a part I love because we like to say it's impact over income. And I said it earlier, if you impact people in a positive way, they'll pay you for it because people are looking for it. And often they'll do business with someone that they know cares and that there's a greater mission behind it
Right.
than do someone that they know is just trying to get a buck, even if they're doing it for cheaper. And you're not the cheapest in the market. I mean, you charge a premium price for what you do, but you guys do really quality work. And there's a lot of stories we could talk about Bob and his team and doing good for clients. So Bob, where you're at now, what's the vision? 5 years, what's your vision for Onyx and where do you want to grow it?
I want to grow it as big as we could all put our feet on the pedal and push that gas down.
Yeah.
5 years, I don't want to put a cap, I guess, on a number. But
So we'll put it at least 5 years, want to at least get to what point? Because you have big goals for generous giving and making an impact. So what's that minimum number that Onyx needs to be at to accomplish that in your mind?
50 million.
Yeah.
I mean,
And knowing you'll get to 25 and you'll be like, I think we can do better.
well, I think even if we got to 100, I'd say we could do better
Yeah.
because the world's a big place and the
Mhm.
industry that I'm in, there's asphalt and concrete all over the world.
Yeah, people got to drive. There's roads everywhere.
And as long as, like we talked about, it's grow the company, but what impact are we doing on the world?
Right.
And I think that as we hit each level of, okay, we made this much, how much could we help? Well, if we made double, we could help double, right?
Yeah.
And then, so it's just a matter of how much, part of it drives, I'm 56 now. I don't know what the end number will be, but I want to try to max the rest of that out as much as I possibly can and help as much as I can. And
Yeah.
and even, people that may be watching here, maybe we could help them in some way at some point if you have enough
Absolutely.
income that maybe somebody out there is like, I'd like to start a business, but maybe how can I, or something
Yeah.
like that. And
Well, and that's part of the Altru vision as well. I shared that with you earlier tonight, is to take the profits between us and the clients who want to be a part of that mission and put it into a nonprofit or a fund that we can use to support small business owners. Because, a lot of people, they hit challenges, they don't have the education. I mean, I was like that, and it was investing in programs and getting into masterminds, getting around the right kind of people to learn what I needed to learn to move me forward. So that's something that we're passionate about. I'm sure that's something that we can do together.
yeah,
And that's what I'm looking forward to. I know that we've talked about it, the future, not just working together and partnering in business, but also in the common mission to make an impact and give generously. So Bob, last question for me. Looking forward, having come out of these 3 days with us, what's your level of clarity and confidence now compared to, before we did this last 3-day deep dive into your business?
a 10. I mean,
Awesome.
I have no doubt that yourself and the team, um, I know we're going places.
Yeah.
There's no doubt. And I know also, with no doubt, I'll say for myself that I was not going to get where we're going to get by myself.
Yeah.
So, I can't thank you all for coming here. I know it's, like I told you, it's been a blessing for the 3 days. It's actually, I know we joked a little bit like, hey, it's going to get uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But for me right now, it's given me comfort knowing that I have clarity.
Mhm.
That we have the right team to do what we need to do now, and that
Sure.
I can, if you notice, I don't really talk about the money. It's what I
Yeah,
really could do now is fulfill my purpose.
I love that.
And that's what I really want to do. And I was, how can my biggest thing always was, I want to help all these people. I want to do this, I want to do this, but you need money to do it. So either
Yeah.
you're going to get lucky and, I don't know, win the lottery, um, or you got to work for it,
Yeah.
right? And so one thing I will say is that, um, when I started Onyx and, I had to work, but I seen what I was making and how things were going. Um, Onyx was like my lottery
Hmm.
that I had to work for.
Yeah.
And so,
Well, they say that the lottery, I mean, playing the lotto,
right,
the lottery, or what do they call it? The lottery ball or whatever it is the poor man's retirement, because it's all based on chance. But what you've done is you took that initiative, you had a vision, and still now pushing forward to create that vision and not just hoping it happens, but building it. So
yeah, no, I have no doubt now. And
yeah,
for all who maybe have been wondering, what do you think? I would highly recommend it. As you know, for the last 3 days, I'm a pretty
yeah.
brutally honest guy. Um,
Bob doesn't hold it back.
yeah,
He's using a little bit of filter now, but he gives us the full Chicago
yeah,
when we're working.
we're live. No, no Chicago slang going. So actually, I can turn it off. You probably wondered if I could, but when I got to be professional, we could do it. But yeah, no, the reason I bring up the lottery is because my purpose is so
Yeah,
big that where are you going to get that type of money from, right? And
yeah,
of course, that's a lot. But you'll if you want it. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm one of them people that if I want it, I think I'm at a level of life where they talk about a lot of people win it and they
sure.
lose it just as fast, right?
Oh yeah,
I, and then probably as a young person, I would have been one of them people that would have got it and have lost it, just having a good time.
yeah,
But now I appreciate it and being later in life, uh, realize purpose and different clarity
sure.
and thoughts of where I'd like to be and what I'd like to do. And so I'm very excited that we're going to build this company forward. I know I put some numbers and people, you could only grow a business so fast, but
Mhm.
we'll throw a little faith in God
Yeah,
and a little of everybody and a little bit of team prep, effort. And I think that one thing I'm a true believer is you give, and I believe the world's an echo and it gives back. And if you do it for the right reasons, it's just a give and take, and it should excel us all. And you're
yeah,
also
absolutely.
good people and a man of God. So um, I just think it's a great team, and I think it's going to happen. And not, I shouldn't say I think, I know it's going to happen.
There you go.
Speak
Yeah,
clearly, and I'm very excited. And
we're gonna do some big
yeah,
things.
um,
Help a lot of
and it's an
people.
honor to be on here tonight with you. So thank you for that too.
Yeah, it won't be the last time. We'll have to circle back and give an update. So for all you guys that are watching, this is why we do the Business Builders Weekly really show is to give value. And we often do training, but since we're on site and Bob was available and he was excited, he wanted to. He was willing to give his time because normally you're home walking the dogs. You got two big giant cane corsos, but he rearranged things last minute to be here with us and in our Airbnb to do this episode because we want to give value to you guys. So we'll rearrange our schedules. But that's really what it's about. We don't charge for this show. We just do it to give you guys value. So hopefully you got a ton of value from it. And now I want to thank you, Bob, for
Oh
giving
my,
the time
thank
and
you.
being
It
on.
was a pleasure. I mean, I wanted to be on here just because I've been the people on the other side,
Yeah,
right? And you look and you wonder and I don't know, and at least myself, I don't know if I could talk for everybody.
sure. I mean, that's
And the
awesome.
reason I wanted to do this is anybody watching, go for it. You have to ask yourself, if I don't, will I have regrets? And if you do want to um, go for it. And if you need help, these are the places, like you said, you're doing these at night for free. And if you like it, you learn something, you get going, you move to the next thing. At some point, you will have to start getting it to a higher level, but you build toward it. But definitely go for it. Know that there's some, I will tell you all out there, there's some good people right here that will definitely help you with the right, what would be the word for it, the right reasons that they're here to help you and help the big purpose. So that's.
Well, we appreciate you,
Yeah.
Bob, and thanks for taking the time. Everyone, we appreciate you. And what we usually do at the end was we open it up. So we've got folks on who might have questions. So if you have a question for myself or for Bob, this is a great opportunity to ask him a question, and they can be business, working with us, whatever it is. So let's open it up. And Kirk's there, moderating in the chat with you guys. So if you have a question, drop it in, and we'll take them.
Or we didn't do, I didn't, well, we'll be part of anybody's got any wins.
Oh yeah.
We
Hey,
always,
if you got to win too.
we always like them wins, so I'd love to hear you win. I get to be that guy. Let me hear your wins.
All right. So we'll unmute Asha.
Hey, um, I've heard a lot of uh business owners, and I know we've talked about it with the Altru team too. Um, I feel like Bob, you portray a perfect example of, putting your head down to the ground and just doing the work and pushing. How hard was it to hit that million? Like how much more difficult did it feel to hit that million versus after that million mark? Because I feel like Matt and I are in that boat where we're pushing so hard to break through that million. And there's so many business owners that say that first million is the hardest. And then after that, it's the same difficulty, but it's easier to keep making more. But how long do you keep struggling before you hit that million?
For me, and we're all in different industries, so different things and equipment. And so with mine, it wasn't hard to get to the million because I'll be honest with you, I made it with my back. I worked harder, not smarter. So that wasn't so bad. So we might all have, based on businesses, a million may be easier or harder to reach. Where we've got at a higher level is where I've been stuck. So it's at some point you can only work so hard and you got to start figuring out the smarter part. And that's where I reached out with
Sure.
you guys to learn, because I maxed out my knowledge and I kept, like I said, and when we were talking, I kept trying to move forward and I moved back because I get uncomfortable. So I would say, my opinion, if you're at a place you're stuck, reach out. Do they work with?
Yeah, we're working with
Yeah,
this right
so,
now.
I mean, you guys will work in there and give them the knowledge and then help them push through, right?
Yeah. And I've heard, talking to other business owners about the same question. A lot have said, and business owners we've worked with, who broke through a million. The hardest part is it's not familiar. I mean, once you've made a million is familiar. So if to go from 1 to 2 and 2 to 3, it's just adding another million. But then the next mental kind of block is the 10 million.
Right.
And it's just a mental thing. There are systems or processes that need to be in place, but the thing that becomes the real point of friction is the mental part, believing you can do it and it not being familiar.
And having the tools and the people. I mean,
Yeah.
that's where, as you see, that's where we're struggling. So I don't know enough about their business, but to maybe get through that million, you need to have the right process, the right people, the right things, the right tools. And at that point, you should cruise right through it with a little bit of,
Yeah.
as you guys called it, uncomfort.
Yeah. Getting uncomfortable.
Getting uncomfortable. But I will say they kept asking me that. I would tell you, is it uncomfortable or is it not uncomfortable? Is it more uncomfortable not to get there, or is it more comfortable to get through there? So for me, the uncomfortable getting through it.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to us
Mhm.
going through it. And to get to, I know that there'll be comfort. So
Yeah.
I
I think that's an interesting way to look at it. You flip it, and we talked about this before. It's really choose your hard. It's hard to not generate enough money in business, and it's hard to push through and break through that first million. So shifting your mindset around, redefining what is hard, and when for you, I mean, we talked about several things that you've been through personally in life, from your childhood to in business, and then you said, well, I don't feel like this is going to be hard. I just need the right tools because you've been through so many hard things. Your definition of hard and your threshold for pain is a lot higher.
I mean, I would say, looking back, it was harder for me to get to like 300,000 than it was 1 million. I don't know if that makes sense because I had to get the train moving.
Yeah.
Right.
You gotta get that initial
Once we got
momentum.
past that going, the million came, and don't get me wrong, I was so excited that,
Sure.
But different excitement, like we talked about later, but now the train is only so big, and so this is where we need to get.
Yeah.
So I'm not you guys, obviously, and I'm not sure if I'm giving her the right answers, but I think
No, I think it's great.
different businesses, another business that may bill out larger numbers may blast through 1 million.
Mhm.
I don't know if it's the actual money or your company gets to a certain level and you need to get to the next level. Like if we were
Yeah.
billing out $250,000 jobs every time, well, you only
Mhm.
gotta get 40 through 1 million, but at one
Right.
point, you would need to have the team, because if you were doing 250, you're at 10 million.
Right.
Could you handle all of a sudden $10 million? I
Yeah.
mean,
And that's why we talk about business growth and scaling, and they're not the same. Growth is strengthening the business in preparation for scaling. We talk about the four phases of the business cycle because 1 million for you is not nearly as many clients as 1 million for the Mintons who run a marketing agency because of the dollar amount.
right, that's what I was getting at.
Yeah, so we talk about the phases of the business cycle because regardless of what that first breakthrough threshold is for you, you have to still go through the same phases. So for you, you get through the foundation, that's 2-3 million for you.
Right.
For a marketing agency, the foundation gets you to some cap out at 500, and that's what they have to push through. 500,000. Others, it's 1 million. So if we look at it in terms of those phases, it's not about the number, it's about the stage of growth that your business is at. And if you look at that, the number becomes irrelevant because you can't go through those cycles or those phases of the cycle without breaking through in revenue.
Right.
So if you shift the focus to that, now we're having a different conversation and we're not chasing the number and feeling like we're behind because we're so far from the number, but rather we're just not at that phase yet. And when we get to that phase, it will feel effortless.
Right, yeah, no, because if you're billing a smaller amount day after day after day, to get to that larger amount, you need a bigger team, you need more
Right.
systems, you need all who's gonna, if your average bill is a couple $1,000
Mhm.
to get to 1 million, 2 million, you've got a lot of moving
Right.
parts to keep rolling that $2,000. So that's where, like, her asking that question, it was harder for me to get everything going, but we bill a little larger amount. I don't
Sure.
know marketing what the average bill is, but
Really depends on industry. Yeah.
right. So with ours, the numbers are a little bigger, so it was harder, it was easier to get to that.
Yeah.
To that number. So my answer would be to somebody, it's depending on what your business is and what you're billing and what your team is, so that would be.
Yeah. And that's another reason why at Altru we talk about business principles as opposed to just the tactical side of it, because it changes from business to business, not only in what the tactics are, but how you apply the principles. So I love that. That was a great question.
Thank you.
We have any more? All right. Well, we appreciate you guys hanging out with us again, and glad we could make this happen. We had to do a little rearranging, and appreciate you guys tuning in. So continue. And I would ask, if you're getting value from the Business Builders Weekly show, share it out. Share the link, businessbuildersweekly.com. Invite your fellow business owners because we want to get as many people on here as possible to help and make an impact, regardless of what size of business they are. And those who need the help and it makes sense to work with us can do that. But ultimately, the goal is let's make an impact in as many people's lives as possible. So we appreciate you guys and have a great evening. We'll see you on the next episode of the Business Builders Weekly Show.